Alright, this is another in the first read series where I just read a poem by a poet I don't know or know very little about, and do a first reading just for the sheer joy of it. So I'm not always right. I might go back and completely change my mind afterwards. It's really not uncommon. I think sometimes when I read more of that poet's work, I can get a feel for what they're doing, or I can put them in context of literary theory or their traditions they're coming out of or whatever, and I might change it. But the first read is why I came to poetry in the first place. It's just the sheer joy of it before I've killed it trying to analyze it. So that's what happening. That's what happens. So this one is from the Tupelo Quarterly. Tupelo Quarterly is a great little magazine. It has some translations in it. So I was drawn to this one right off the bat. I haven't read it. I just know as the title and the person's name, which looks Portuguese, and looking down it says is Afro-Brazilian poet from Salvador Bahia. So if you've seen any of these other videos, whenever it's a translation, I try to look up at least the original to see if I can't read it, that is, what the shape looks like, or if I can read it, I'll look and check the translation. Depends on what language it is. Portuguese, I don't speak Portuguese. I'm a little familiar with some of the words from having been to Brazil and studied it a little bit, but not enough to do anything with it. And I couldn't really find this one. It might be out there. I just, this poet has a lot of stuff online, and I just didn't see it right off the bat. I did notice there is a lot of Greek stuff showing up. Like this Thanatos is this death for the Greeks. But there was also some poems that referenced Laertes, Epidaurus, the Pleiades, which I thought was kind of interesting, just not having read anything from this Afro-Brazilian poet from Salvador. Just kind of interesting, these Greek things, like what's going to happen with it. So this one, Thousand and Thanatos by Alex Simoes, translated by Carolyn Wright. I want to be able to sing with impunity without having to be grateful for being alive. That's, I think, something a lot of people feel. This one, I think for the poet, just sing with impunity without having to be grateful for being alive, without having to celebrate it, without just be, without having to be grateful for it, or problematize why one feels fear. But this is constant. I feel like, that happens in poetry a lot. This need for the poet to be overly political or socially conscious, or overly rosy, or overly, philosophical or thoughtful or grateful. I want to be alive to sing, be able to sing with impunity without having to be grateful for being alive, or problematize why one feels fear of being horny, bored, convivial, which are like why one feels fear of these things. Why? They're just very human things. Where are my friends, my people? Dead of 1,000 and Thanatos reasons. It's an odd line, dead of 1,000 and Thanatos reasons, like 1,000 reasons. Or alive, almost alive, while thus face to face with which of the truths brings us relief. This contrast again, so we have this or in the beginning, and here's another or. They're either dead or almost alive while face to face with which of the truths brings us relief. Like, which of these brings us relief, the death or the almost alive? And my friends, my people, are these, like, this is, I feel like a very much acclaimed my people, not a family, my people, but my people as in people I've chosen to be there, which is different than family. Like, you don't choose your family, but the ones you feel connected with, your people, you do choose, I think, in many ways. It feels like that. Maybe this isn't the case, but that's what it feels like. Well, which of these truths brings us relief? I don't know. That's interesting. Is it over or again? Not having answers can be only the beginning of a certainly poorly disguised indignation in small doses. In the militant aesthetic of not showing up either to save the world or to bring to light what? At its core. This is, I think, that beginning where I thought it was that either or, I think that happens here. That's a replay. Like, this is not having the answers to the friends, and why they can't answer brings you to this dichotomy, which is not complete. There's more that poems can do, that people can do, than this dichotomy of the militant aesthetic or bringing to light, like what's at its core, the oars. Just being able to sing with impunity, just being there, I think, is kind of interesting. The Thousand and Thanatos Reasons, as a title, I'm curious, like, why that came to be the title for this one. I don't usually question titles that much, but it's a very distinct title. Dead of 1,000 and Thanatos Reasons, that's my people. That feels like there is a beginning of a political awareness feeling to that line. Maybe intentionally to point to that beginning political awareness, which it brings up later on, like the beginning of a certain poorly disguised indignation. Maybe that's happening here. Definitely worthwhile to see more of this poet's work. I think this as a piece is interesting. I'd really like to see this with other pieces, to see how this poet develops out, bleeds out into other pieces with what kind of meaning. So definitely interesting. Carolyn Wright, I don't know anything about her. Seattle, Washington translator. All right. So very interesting. Oh, and looks like there's a complete translation coming out. That's a welcome translation.